Hello, it's Ruby, and today I am going to be telling you the top 200 books I have ever read. I don't think it's a secret at this point that I really do like reading. I've just always really loved books, and I wanted to share with you my top book recommendations. And basically these are 200 books that I think everyone should try to read. They're very, very varied because I do read varied literature. I don't read all the same genre or same author, so this video is going to be separated into classics, contemporary fiction, non-fiction, middle grade and YA fiction. Hopefully there's something here for everyone. I hope that you walk away with some good book recommendations. Lastly, stay tuned till the end of the video because I have a very exciting and fun and cool announcement that I have been waiting to share with you for about a month or two now. It's just going to be really fun, and if you are a big bookworm like me, I'm assuming you are if you've clicked on this video, then stay tuned to the end of the video because I feel like you might enjoy this announcement. So, we are going to start with classics. I feel like that's quite a solid place to start, and I have got 43 classics to share with you. The Odyssey, translated by Emily Wilson, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, Dracula by Bram Stoker, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, also Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier, which isn't as good as Rebecca, but du Maurier's writing is just remarkable and very accessible actually. If you want to get into classics, I think Daphne du Maurier is a good place to start. The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, Moby Dick by Herman Melville, Sylvia Plath's Journals, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Then I've got 4 Shakespeare plays. These are my top 4 Shakespeare plays, which are King Lear, The Winter's Tale, Macbeth and Much Ado About Nothing, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Paradise Lost by John Milton, Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote, A Diary of a Nobody, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, A Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Go-Between, Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This was the book that really got me into reading dystopia. It's my favourite dystopian book still. If on a Winter's Night, A Traveller. The reason I've included this is because the narrative style is so interesting. It takes a second person perspective, so instead of it being, you know, first person or third person narrated, it's kind of narrated by the second person, so you're a character within the narration. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, also Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, Around the World in 80 Days, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden, which offers an early perspective on mental health. I think it's written in the 1970s or 80s. Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, Lord of the Flies, Brave New World, 1984, Of Mice and Men, The Colour Purple, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Winesburg, Ohio. This is a collection of stories from within this tiny village town in America. I really do love books which are set in provincial towns and villages. I think it's because it's not plot driven as a novel. There is so much more of a focus on introspective thought. Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, not The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. Different book. Invisible Man is so much better. Bartleby the Scrivener by Herman Melville. This is the only short story I've included on this list, but it's so good that I couldn't omit it. And then finally, of the classic novels, The Ballad of the Sad Cafe by Carson McCullers, which again is a collection of short stories and again is quite provincial. It's a bit like Winesburg, Ohio. Then I've just got 2 poetry anthologies I'm going to recommend. I could go on and on about poetry, but the 2 that are top for me are The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy by Tim Burton and The Complete Poems of Emily Dickinson. Dickinson is my favourite poet. Combining kind of 2 in 1, yes, I'd recommend the complete poems, but I'd also recommend the envelope poems, which is this little coffee table book, and it has these scans of how she'd actually handwritten her poems. Okay, next we are going to go on to YA fiction. I've got 26 YA books. First of all, we've got 2 books by Laurie House Anderson, Catalyst and Winter Girls, A Danger to Herself and Others, The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender, Perks of Being a Wallflower, of course, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, which was This might be my favourite YA book of all time. Another of my favourites of all time is Bullies Like Me, which I've read a lot of books about bullying, especially a couple years ago, and this is the best one I ever read about bullying. Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. The Bad Girls Don't Die series. Believerexic. Dear Evan Hansen, which is based on the stage show. Enter title here. Paperweight. More Than This by Patrick Ness. Walking Naked. Small Spaces by Sarah Epstein. Hugely gripping thriller. I literally read this in one sitting. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. What I Was by Meg Rossoff. The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. The Unwind series. We Were Liars. The Slated Trilogy. Wolf by Wolf. Every Day, and finally Torn, which I read when I was in year 8 and I really liked it. It was one of my favourite books, but I reread it, rookie mistake, I reread it last year and I didn't really like it. Okay, now we're going to go on to middle grade books. I do actually have more middle grade than YA. Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. Tinder by Sally Gardner. Coraline by Neil Gaiman, which I used to read every night the day before we went back to school for the autumn term. Multiple Choice. Counting by Sevens, which is probably my favourite middle grade book. A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. Makes me cry every time. Wonder by R.J. Palacio. Everyone has to read this book. The Clockwork Sparrow. This is a trilogy. I only read the first one, but I really liked it. Love, Aubrey, which I read when I was 11. Probably read it 3 or 4 times since then. Beautiful. It's really sad. Gregory and the Grim Buckle by Melanie Schubert. I love the concept behind this book. Summer's Dream by Kathy Cassidy. Kyrsten Strong. The Lightning Thief. Again, I didn't read the whole series, but I read the first one. 11, which is about 9/11. After the Fire. The Alice Miranda series. I read this for the first time in 2018 and I read quite a few books then and I liked it. She's such a cool character. They're really nice books just to slip into. The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge. Wolf Hollow. Northern Lights, the first book in the Dark Materials series. I still haven't read the rest of that series, so that's actually something I want to read this year. Then I've got a few Jacqueline Wilson books. I did love Jacqueline Wilson when I was younger. I read every single Jacqueline Wilson book. It got to the stage where I was actually told I wasn't allowed to read Jacqueline Wilson anymore because it was all I was reading. The ones I really liked were My Sister Jodie. I read when I was 7 and it was the first time I cried at a book. I was in hysterics about an hour. Little Darlings. Bad Girls I really liked. Wave Me Goodbye I actually read more recently just because I liked the premise of it, so I decided to read it. I think Jacqueline Wilson's a really great children's author. The Goldfish Boy, I think that's the best perspective on OCD which I've ever seen in middle grade. Word Nerd. Mr. Creature, which is like a retelling of Frankenstein. Mockingbird. This is about a young girl with high functioning autism and how she's dealing with grief. Memoirs of an Imaginary Friend. Fat Boy Swim. River Boy. Ways to Live Forever. The Bunker Diary, which won the Carnegie, I think. The Cherub series, which was, oh my gosh, if you didn't read the Cherub series when you were younger, you missed out on your childhood. That series was so good. Persepolis, which is actually a graphic novel. The only graphic novel I've ever read, funnily enough. Pig Hut Boy by Mallory Blackman. Out of My Mind. The Ant Colony. And finally, the Gifted series, which I read in year 6 and 7 and I really liked it. Okay, now we're going to go on to children's books. So these aren't middle grade. These are slightly more classic children's books. But I wanted to put this aside as a separate section. I've got 17 of these books. I Am David. I don't know where this book fits, so I just put it in with children's. I kind of almost see it as an adult book at the same time, so it's really difficult to say. This is about a boy who escapes from a concentration camp. The Harry Potter series, of course. The Hobbit. Peter Pan. The Nutcracker. A Little Princess, my favourite children's book. Favourite book of all time, probably. Little Women. Boy Tales of Childhood by Roald Dahl. Matilda by Roald Dahl. Secrets at Mallory Towers by Enid Blyton / Pamela Cox. Swallows and Amazons. Then a series of unfortunate events series, but my favourite one was definitely The Austere Academy. Anne of Green Gables. The Little Prince. The complete works of Angela Brazil. She writes books quite similar to Mallory Towers, like boarding school books. Alice in Wonderland, and finally The Magical Faraway Tree by Enid Blyton, which was my favourite thing. I loved them when I was about 7 or 8. We are next going to go on to contemporary fiction. I've got 44 books in this category. The Institute by Stephen King, History of the Rain, Blithe Spirit, which is actually a play, 3 books by Ian McEwan: The Children Act, On Chesil Beach, and Atonement. Gather the Daughters, Me and Emma. At the time I read this, it became my favourite book. History of Wolves, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. Oh, let's just take a moment for this book. The Man Who Walked Through Walls and Other Stories. This is a collection of short stories. I really like the way it examines the eccentricity of humankind and our desires. It's just really good. Cat's Eye by Margaret Atwood, of course. Everything I Never Told You. Elders, Our Endless Numbered Days, We Need to Talk About Kevin, Reconstructing Amelia, The Story of an African Farm, Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, Interview with a Vampire, The Circle by Dave Eggers. Great, so much better than the film. Oh, the film was a disappointment. It just didn't get what the book was trying to say. The disparate endings annoy me so much. Birdsong by Sebastian Faulks, The Martian, which I just found was so funny, The Grass is Singing by Doris Lessing, Quarantine, Let the Right One In, which is actually a vampire book, The Secret Life of Bees, The Blood of the Lamb, The Girl Who Saved the King of Sweden, which is so good. Oh my gosh, I love the characters so much. Before I Go to Sleep, again a thriller, really fast paced, The Kite Runner, My Sister's Keeper. This is the one book I would say you should watch the film before you read the book. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, Never Let Me Go, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which actually I should have put with non-fiction and autobiography, but it's here. Life of Pi, The Lovely Bones, The Book Thief, The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, Irish Mother and Daughter short stories, again a collection of short stories. I remember really liking these ones. 100 Days of Solitude. This book was great. I accidentally picked up the wrong one, so I was like 15 and I thought it was 100 Years of Solitude, and I accidentally picked up 100 Days of Solitude, which is a completely different book. But I thought it was fantastic. It's this lady who goes to spend 100 days living by herself in Greece. The Trouble with Goats and Sheep. Wow. And finally, for contemporary fiction, Lost for Words, which is a bit like Eleanor Oliphant. Okay, and then finally we are going to be going on to non-fiction. I've got 28 non-fiction books, and there is a mix here. So I've got a few autobiographies and memoirs, and then a few kind of proper non-fiction books, but I've grouped them all together. First of all, we have got Drive by Daniel H. Pink, which I've spoken about so extensively on this channel that you're probably tired of hearing about it. The Universe Inside of You by Brian Clegg. Educated, a memoir by Tara Westover. Hard Choices by Hillary Clinton. The French Revolution by Christopher Hibbert. Wonderful comprehensive guide to the French Revolution, written like a story. God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. Sapiens, Problems of Philosophy by Bertrand Russell. A Letter to a Christian Nation by Sam Harris. Queen Bees and Wannabes, which kind of examines the politics of schools. This is the best book ever. The Overachievers, The Secret Lives of Driven Kids. If you identify as maybe someone who really tried very hard in school, I feel like you might like this book. It's really fascinating. It follows for a year, I think 7 or 8 high achievers in this school in America, and examines the pressures that young people face, and I would highly recommend it. The Cost of Discipleship by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. A Million Years in a Day by Greg Jenner, which basically examines the history of daily things that we do every single day, like brushing our teeth, going to the toilet. What's the history behind it? The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, and Why Be Happy When You Could Be Normal. The Two Memoirs by Jeanette Winterson. The really cool thing about this is how she treats autobiography, merging between fiction and reality. Positive, a memoir by Paige Rule. This is about a girl born HIV positive. Miracles from Heaven. You probably have seen the film. The book is very good. In Therapy, these transcripts looking at what the patient and the therapist say within the session and what the therapist is thinking. A Child Called It, which is harrowing, really, really heartbreaking. Anne Frank's Diary, of course, has to be on this list. Night by Elie Wiesel. A Night to Remember, which is an account of the Titanic, exactly what happened. The Simpsons and Their Mathematical Secrets. I'm a huge fan of The Simpsons. The Elements of Eloquence by Mark Forsyth, which is fantastic. Fermat's Last Theorem, My Grammar and Me, The Gospel According to The Simpsons, The Motivation Myth, The Miracle Morning, and finally Boy Erased, which I'm actually reading at the moment, but I had to put it on this list because it's wonderful. I think it might be the best memoir I've ever read. It's about this boy who goes through gay conversion therapy in America. It's heartbreaking, but his writing is so lyrical. You just feel the melancholy infused in the actual writing itself. So there we go. They are my 200 book recommendations. I hope that you walked away with some good new books to read here. There are quite a few there. But as promised, I now have my very exciting announcement to share with you. For a while now, especially in the last couple of weeks, funnily enough, lots of people have been asking me to start a book club. And little did you know that in the background, I'd actually been in the process of setting one up. So at the beginning of February, we are going to be launching a book club community where we can all unite over a shared love of reading and read the same book alongside each other and share our thoughts. Basically, what I'm really envisioning for this is that we can become this little network of readers. So there are going to be loads of book recommendations, more book reviews, and all of this is going to be happening over on my Instagram. So the whole book club will be over on Instagram. So if you do want to join the book club, if you want to be part of it, then please do head over to follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is just @_RubyGranger, and as I said, we're going to be starting at the beginning of February when I will announce the first book. And yeah, I am so excited. I hope that some of you decide to join if you do really like reading, if you want to connect over books. Make sure to head over to my Instagram and follow me on there if you want to be part of the book club. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope that you have a productive week.